at the Waterhole, where first up we're in the wonderful Madikwe Game Reserve in the northwest province of South Africa and at Tal Lodge. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down to drink and quench their thirsts. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the WildEarth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth as it showed on your screen. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. Seems like there are a few clouds about. Yesterday was a little bit more overcast, was hoping for rain, but doesn't look like it was forthcoming. Anyway, the animals are still out and about, as they always are. Lots of waterfowl. Looks like there might be an African spoonbill off on the left there, the Egyptian geese wallowing through the mud. Lots of zebra and blue wildebeest. Looks like an impala there as well, and a waterbuck bull. Looks like he's on his own. So Chazzy Cheetah 33 saying, I wonder what's waiting at the Waterhole for us. Yeah, as per usual, you never know what to expect with the animals out here in the wild. And Mari Lor Ligo saying thank you from Belgium. Happy day. Well, greetings to you, Mari Lor, and lovely to have you on board once again. So just going in a bit closer there, you see the animals milling about. Most of them, well, the blue wildebeest will be ruminating. Zebras aren't ruminants, they're hardened gut fermenters. So they're just biding their time, I would say. It's generally during the heat of the day that the animals do take their respite and their rest time. It does take a lot more energy to keep cool, and the predators are also relaxing up in the shade, most likely. There's a beautiful waterbuck bull with lovely horns on him. You see how they curl forward like that? And quite a few impala rams as well. Little bachelor herd. So you can see there are some clouds about here, not too many or to speak of though. But with that being said, I think it's time we're going to have a look what the weather's going to be like across all the different locations. So a bit of a mixed bag across the board. Sunshine and showers, we could say. I'm just hoping for showers here in the semi-arid region of South Africa, right on the border of Botswana in the greater Kalahari system. So normally pretty dry and would welcome some rain. So Shiv asking, hello Ralph from the UK. And Shiv, lovely to have you on board all the way from the United Kingdom. Are the crocs still at Madikwe? Good question, Shiv. We haven't seen them for a while. I would assume so, but the water is really dropping at this particular waterhole at Tau. So we haven't seen any crocs at Jamala, but this is the spot where we normally see them. There's apparently 5 of them, but with the water levels dropping, I think it's a little bit more difficult for them. But we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, hello. There we go. There's one. Just moving through the shallows. So I guess that answers your question, Shiv. There is at least one. And just like that, it's gone. There's a grey heron there. You can also see these channels made in the mud here. That's from the crocodiles. So there's evidence of them still being here, but only having seen one now. I'm pretty sure the rest of them are around somewhere. So Villy was saying quite a temperature spread. Yeah, it is, we are at many different locations, some right at the tip of South Africa, all the way up right into the north and into Kenya, and also over into Okukoyo in the Etosha National Park. So it's a massive area. And I do know that there's been quite a bit of rain around in the Lowveld. So the Greater Kruger Park sort of zone is getting a bit of rain now currently. We just wish that it would also come on over here to Madikwe. So Shiv was just responding to seeing the crocodile there and saying, thank you, Ralph, and great work by the Zoomy. Absolutely. Good job. That was perfect timing. And there's one of the African spoonbills, that white bird. With a spoon-shaped bill. Very unique. And can't be mistaken for any other bird once you see that bill. And a lovely, nice, clear view on this bird right now. Seeing that very red face, a little bit of yellowing on the top of the head and down the neck. Yeah, I wonder if that crocodile is just having a look at that spoon bowl. It seems to be nice and hot, so they'll be quite energetic. Their solar panels are being fully charged. Now, we often get asked if crocodiles will take birds because you often see the birds very nonchalant and relaxed around the crocodiles, but there's every chance that a crocodile can take a bird at any given moment. I wonder if he's trying to sneak up on this spoonbill. So Canine Girl was asking, hi Ralph, happy sunny Sunday. Looking forward to a great live at the Waterhole with you. Well, not a question, a comment. Thanks very much, Canine Girl. And, well, we hope for some action. Never know what's going to happen. And Villy saying, spoonbill are omnivores? Question. Yeah, I don't know if they are. I think, there's a second crocodile. And now we've seen two in a very short space of time. I'm pretty sure that they're carnivorous, but I'll just double check that. Ooh, what's going on? Could this be a little bit of a mating dance? Might well be. So, and if there's any kind of mating dance here, they use actually those ridges on their back to spray the water up into the air when they vibrate it, and it's amazing to see. So that's what I'm hoping for. So, Villy, it seems that I'm 90% sure that they're pretty much just carnivores, or the spoonbills. And according to Wikipedia, they say that they feed in shallow water and fishes for various fish, mollusks, amphibians, crustaceans, insects, and larvae. So I don't know if there's any animal protein or rather plant protein that they actually feed on. I think it's mainly a carnivorous diet. It's a shame. These crocodiles, with the lack of water, they're not really able to conceal themselves as well as I think they might want to. So they can't really sneak up as easily on the animals. Looks like some of the blue wildebeest have decided to come in for a drink, joined by some zebra as well. So a question came in from Shrivant Rajgaria, asking, Ralph, do you know what happened to the giraffe that was tusked at Old Donyo? Yes, Shrivant. There was reports that the giraffe died pretty quickly. I think it might have even been the next day after it was tusked. And I can only imagine that there's probably been a lot of feeding on it already. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not much left currently. So we don't know exactly where it did ultimately die, but the reports came in that it did. So it met an untimely end, and now would have been feeding lots of opportunistic mouths. Now, sorry about that. There was just a bit of a frozen picture. So we've changed of place and gone to the Greater Kruger Park and Djuma. You can see a little bit more overcast here. So it always does bode well when the temperature is not as hot as usual, that we could potentially have some predators moving about. I don't see any sign as of yet of the resident male hippo, Dewey, or have I spoken too soon? Is that maybe him there? No, that's a waterbuck. So this female waterbuck just foraging along the waterline. There's often nice grass and good grazing just at the edge of the water holes. So you often find the animals feeding there. So we've headed on back to Tau as it's not frozen anymore. Oh, and there's a springbok just on the left. A little baby foal zebra standing there in the dust. Crocodiles still moving about, wondering what they're up to. So we're hopping about a little bit, but that's cool, and we're going to change of place again. We're going to go back to the Greater Kruger, but this time to Rosie's Pan. Where I smell an elephant. I think he's just moved off onto the left side of this waterhole. You can see the signs of the mud that's been kicked up in the waterhole itself. Was it an elephant? No, in fact it was buffalo. And look at that tiny little calf. How cute. It's funny that you often have the little fork-tailed drongos following these big animals, and just like the egrets and sometimes also the little wagtails, they're opportunistic, and so they follow these big animals who kick up the insects out of the grass as they move through. And so the drongos take advantage of that. It looks like Mom just taking the calf for a nice cool off in the pool. That is still a very young calf. See how gangly it is? How special is that? So with no sign of the herd, it's potentially that she's actually gone off on her own to give birth and hasn't quite rejoined the herd just yet. So this period, what we call imprinting, or the imprinting period, when the mother spends time with the little calf alone before rejoining the herd. And in this period they imprint each other's smells, sounds and all of that on their brains, and then very easy to recognize each other. So it looks like she's taken the calf and disappeared off into the bush. Maybe she's trying to relocate the herd, which could also be possible. When she goes for that solitary period, obviously the herd won't wait for her. They'll keep moving, and eventually she'll have to catch up with them. Maybe searching for their smell. Once she picks it up, then she'll be able to catch up. So just going back to this little spot where the birds love drinking, I seem to prefer this area here. Now I'm just checking those. The two closest to the water are Cape Glossy starlings. I'm just wondering about these two new arrivals here. So it looks like red-billed buffalo weavers, if I'm not mistaken. And the one on the left, I would say, is an immature. Lovely close-ups of these birds just having a little bit of a bird bath, getting their feathers wet and helping to cool off as well. But in terms of their feathers, it does help to get off a little bit of that excess preen oil as well. It's like a blue waxbill coming in there, very turquoise, you can see quite easily. And the fork-tailed drongo trying to chase them all off. Oh, here comes a great go-away bird. Frugivore. And off goes the grey go-away bird, being followed closely by the fork-tailed drongo. There he comes again. Little sparrow. Always excellent birding here at Rosie's Pan, particularly on this side of the waterhole. Alright, so it's gone a little bit quiet here. I think it's time to change of place. Let's go to Kenya and Oldonyo. Looks like what I think is a rockagama here in the foreground. You see that yellow head? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a rock agama. See, he's doing that head tipping. Wow, that's a lovely clear picture of this agama. So Glamrock Gaming says watching this is always wholesome and relaxing and always interesting. Hey, you never know what you're going to see next. This is a beautiful shot of this rockagama. And Canine Girl was asking, do we know if Dewey moved as he was having interactions with another male hippo? Canine Girl, not quite sure. He does seem to move. I think it's between Buffelshoek Dam
and the Juma Waterhole. And I think it's just pretty much where he lands up in the evenings. And so he does sort of swap between those two waterholes. And I think maybe today, oh, he's got himself another insect there. Jeepers. Seems like he's in a good spot. So I'm sure we'll see Dewey back at the Juma Waterhole. Maybe tomorrow. Who knows? So, and Mindy Tillapore saying, so happy the world is in color and not just black and white. Yeah, and when you've got such beautiful colors like on this agama, it really is wonderful. And Sandy Franklin 69 saying, what is the umbrella shaped tree? Well, it's exactly that, Sandy Franklin. It's the umbrella thorn. It's the acacia, which they've now changed to Vachellia tortillas. So I've always found that probably one of the easiest tree scientific names to remember. Although I don't know how I've sort of related it to the umbrella, but it does remind me a bit of a tortilla. And so the acacia tortilla or the umbrella thorn is the one that looks like an umbrella, and you see them quite predominantly here at Old Donyo. So this being the Kenyan rock Agama leonotus, and it's a species of lizard from the family Agamidae, found in Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and Ethiopia. It's often confused with the red-headed rock agama, but we can see very clearly that this one does not have a red head. It is yellow. Then Randall was saying, hi Ralph, I just read about the couple that was attacked by a leopard at Kgalagadi, and quite the harrowing story. How often do animals, especially in harsh or dry conditions, resort to hunting humans or safari goers? So first and foremost, I have to say, Randall, it's very unusual, it's very rare, and it can very often be when an animal is injured, when it's sick, and it sort of lands up with a bad condition, getting very hungry, and that's when they resort to sort of knowingly and willingly going to attack humans. Sometimes it's just a bit of an opportunistic thing. I don't know the story. I'll have a look into it about this couple in the Kgalagadi. But sometimes tourists also do unwittingly attract predators into their campsite, with having meat that can be smelt by them. And so, they're attracted by that, and they'll always take the opportunity if there is meat around. Excuse me. So, and it's also about the waste that people have. Are there any bones lying around? Have you indiscriminately been just throwing them in the bush? This can attract the animals. So I'm not saying that they've done any of this, but very often there can be these mistakes made by tourists that are self-driving in the bush. You want to have your waste well secured and packed away, and as far as possible that the animals cannot smell your meat as well, which can be difficult, but it should be put up into the vehicles and locked away so that the animals can't potentially smell it, even though they've got extremely strong senses of smell, if it's inside the vehicle, etc. So, yeah, I don't know if it was an accident. Well, it's always an accident, but exactly the circumstances that led up to this. I'll see what I can find out. So just off in the background there, it's probably one of the best views that we've had of Mount Kilimanjaro. Still a little bit obscured by the clouds, but you can see the snow-capped peaks there just about. What a wonderful sight. So I think with it getting a little bit quiet here at Old Donyo, I think we'll go back to the Madikwe Game Reserve and Africam Tau. Now, I've managed to find this article about this Cape Town couple, and this is from CapetownEtc.com. With their report saying that a Cape Town couple had an unforgettable encounter when a desperate leopard attacked them at the remote Bosobogolo camp in the Mabusuhebi Game Reserve in Kalahari. Gavin and Joel Alderman were camping at Bosobogolo Camp number 2 at the beginning of March. On the first day, temperatures soared above 40 degrees, followed by a milder day reaching the mid-30s. After a beautiful sunset and braai, or barbecue for our international viewers, the pair packed up and secured their equipment for the night. Jill showered and got into the rooftop tent. I was just finishing showering when I noticed an animal in the murky edges of the circle of light. I yelled, "Jill, a leopard!" But in the low light, I had doubts and thought it could perhaps be a cheetah. Big mistake. Gavin said in a Facebook post in the Kalahari sightings group. He said he then secured their motion sensor lights around their Hilux and climbed up into their tent, fixed to the roof of their vehicle. Zipping up the gauze insect protective covering, the couple felt secure, he adds. They lay in bed reading. We were aware of the animal circling the vehicle by the motion sensor lights being triggered, and at one point we were aware that the cheetah had crawled under the bucky, only its tail visible. In the glimpses we could see the animal was completely emaciated and gaunt. Therein lies the rub. I started feeling uneasy. This was an unusual activity and thought, thank goodness we are in a rooftop tent. He says they eventually fell asleep around 10 p.m. and at about 1:30 a.m. Gavin says he jerked awake, hearing movement on the ladder. Sitting bolt upright, instantly wide awake, I peered down the ladder and saw the animal climbing up. I shouted, "He's coming up the ladder." Screaming and swearing was no deterrent as he scrambled up and launched himself onto the gauze of the tent, his claws gripping the thin fabric with his head inches from my face. I started punching at it furiously in the face with all my might. I realized we were now bare-fisted fighting for our lives. Both of us were shouting and screaming, Jill from behind me, hitting with a pillow at its paws and then with her book. Now and again the animal pulled its head back in a terrifying gesture as if to attack and bite through the gauze. He says he focused on punching its claws. I became aware that there was blood spattering in copious amounts, but just carried on punching and shouting, adrenaline coursing through my body in this fight for life. Terrifyingly, during the whole attack, there wasn't a sound from the animal, just its jagged breathing as it concentrated on the assault. There was no flight option at this point. Eventually, the animal fell back. Gavin's hand was bleeding, so Jill grabbed a pillowcase and wrapped it to stop the flow of blood. Panting and shaking from this terrifying experience, which lasted at least a minute, we considered our options. We had to get into the vehicle, but how? While we pondered, we heard what sounded like the animal jumping on the bonnet. It seemed like a horror movie. We would be fighting for our lives the night through. When the animal reappeared at the foot of the ladder, we sprayed it with water from a spray bottle we had with us. This was not much of a deterrent, but a mild distraction. Jill suggested they pull the ladder in, but the animal reappeared when they attempted this. Gavin swung the ladder at it. Eventually we got the ladder in with the tent zipped up, but what now? We had to get into the vehicle, only, again, how? I could either dash down the ladder and confront the beast using the ladder as a weapon, or stealthily creep down the ladder on the opposite side of the bucky as the animal was now in the A-frame, hungrily plotting his next move. The latter was a less grisly option as long as the front door was not locked. Which could have been the case, you never know. Gavin opted to open the tent on the opposite side, slipped down the ladder and got into the vehicle, which was luckily unlocked. Shaking with shock, adrenaline, and the exertions of pounding at the beast's face with all my might for a lengthy period, I thought at least now we have a chance as I started the Toyota. Yelling to Jill to find out if she was okay, I reversed, blood dripping everywhere. I drove the vehicle towards it in an attempt to chase it, then drove slowly to camp number 2, about 3 kilometers away, all the while yelling to Jill if she was okay and telling her to shine backwards down the road to make sure the animal wasn't following us. When they got to the other campsite, the pillow slip wrapped around Gavin's hand was soaked in blood. We gingerly pulled it open, expecting to see a shredded hand, but to our surprise, all that blood came from a single, pretty deep scratch at the base of my ring finger. Phew, relief. He washed his hand in a Dettol solution, dried it, and applied antiseptics and bandages. We slowly drove back towards our camp. In the headlights, there it was, unmistakably a gaunt, highly compromised leopard. My skin crawled as realization set in that we had just, with our fists, driven off this killer animal. The couple snapped some photos of the leopard before it disappeared into the dark bush. At the camp, sitting in the Hilux, talking about the incident, we realized just how lucky we had been. We were suffering now from post-traumatic stress, so I quickly jumped out and retrieved a bottle of whiskey, which we sipped neat to calm our jangled nerves. What a night! We realized once again we were lucky to be alive. And the next morning they drove to Mabua to report the incident, and they met a French couple, both vets, at the gate. They redressed Gavin's wound and gave advice regarding rabies and tetanus shots. After consulting doctors, we realized I needed an anti-tetanus shot. We washed our bloody sheets at the game scout camp and then set off to Leshalachua camp, hoping it would be unoccupied. Fortunately, it was. Luckily, they found someone with an anti-tetanus shot the following day. We reported the incident to Sand Parks when we arrived at Nosob a few days later. This was such an unexpected, terrifying and horrific experience which is taking time to assimilate. Gavin warns that visiting the wild is a high-risk activity. I've been going to Mabua for 43 years, almost every year and sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, so I regard myself as reasonably experienced. I've always carried an axe and a diver knife into the tent with me, but the recent acquisition of a rooftop tent has made me feel safer, so I've let this practice slip. Big mistake. If we had straight away recognized the animal as a leopard, I would have been more alert and cautious. A compromised animal is a far more dangerous risk, as we all know. I'm glad we stayed on for 5 extra nights. It helped me come to terms with the incident. And Gerry Camacho, a carnival scientist and leopard expert with the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency, told the Citizen that the couple survived due to the poor state the leopard was in. But I would have to say that I wouldn't say the leopard would have attacked him if he wasn't in that state. So, yeah, it's neither here nor there. But if it was in a better state, the story could have had a different ending. A healthy cat would be able to effortlessly jump on the tent from the ground and bite through the gauze. He adds that if the animal had just a little more energy, it would not have stopped until it succeeded. And Camacho says the most common injuries, such as porcupine quills that get stuck in a cat's mouth or throat, could be the cause of the leopard's condition. Camacho recommends campers always have a small axe at hand when camping in unfenced reserves such as Botswana. Now, I've had a look at the picture of the leopard as well. It seems like it's a young male, and, you know, Camacho, this leopard expert, could be quite right in that it could have had an injury, most definitely, but what is for sure is that its condition was not great, and it was obviously hungry, and that's what it was coming looking for. So My advice to travelers and self-drive tourists going camping, etc. Okay, an axe maybe, but I think there's two better things that you can have with you that are easier to carry around and keep in your tents. One is a small direct stream spray, a pepper spray canister, and another is a horn. You know, these very loud horn canisters that you get that make an almighty noise. You can have both of these, and both are an excellent deterrent. With a leopard like that, I would have sprayed him straight in his face and put the horn out, and I think he would have gone running for cover. Hindsight is 2020. Mr. Captain Hindsight is always there to come and give us advice, but I know it's difficult, and you would, have had to think about that and have it in the tent every time. And like this chap said, he's been doing this for 40 years plus, and he obviously thought that he's much safer on the rooftop tent. It just goes to show leopards can climb trees, they can climb ladders, they can jump on top of vehicles very easily, and injured and sick animals are dangerous. And if you're in these areas, it's best to take these kinds of precautions. And I would say pepper spray, horn, and a very strong torch so that you can shine it in the animal's eyes. It is one of the best tools to have out in the bush at night, because lions, leopards, hyenas, I've tested it on all of them, and when you shine that bright light in their eyes, they can't see what's behind the light, so they get nervous and they keep circling around to try and get to the other side of the light. But you maintain the light in their eyes, eventually they move off. And it's worked every single time, as has the pepper spray and the horn. So those are three methods that I always will maintain, and that can really keep you safe if you're going camping out in any of these areas where there's potentially dangerous animals, especially at night. It's always nice to see the springbok around, South Africa's national animal, and our beloved rugby team as well. World champions. We'll keep shouting that out for the next 4 years. Oh, hello. Big elephant. Photo bombing. Ears out. I wonder what he's worried about. See the zebra there actually going over to that termite mound. It looks like they're having a lick on it. It is a nutrient hotspot, so you often see animals doing this on termite mounds. The termite's bringing up a lot of nutrients from underground, and exposing it on the surface there. So I've seen elephants eating the dirt from termite mounds, tusking it, breaking it up, and actually eating clumps of it. And then lots of other animals sort of generally do this kind of licking out of it, and they do use their teeth sometimes as well to scrape a bit of it off, getting in those minerals and the salts and all the nutrients that the termites have brought up from below the ground. Lots more elephants all making an appearance. That's lovely. So Cecile was saying it sounds like the unfenced campsites in Kalahari are dangerous and also not in the best interest of the animals. Cecile, I would have to say that I do disagree in the sense that any wilderness area is potentially dangerous. You've got snakes, you've got scorpions, you've got spiders, and that's before we even think of any of the predators and the big animals like we're looking at here, the elephants and the rhinos and the buffalo. And so there's a lot of potentially dangerous animals, but I think it's just such wonderful wilderness areas to be able to go and visit. If you keep a few things in mind and respectful of the animals and mindful of your presence and what that can do in the ways of attracting animals to where you are situated. So that's why I speak of, I think it's very important for campers just to be very aware of these potential dangers, and so they can mitigate them with a few techniques that can help you and don't attract the animals firstly into your campsite, such as the waste. This is a real big thing because I've done over 20 years of overland camping safaris with guests from all over the world, and this is always the biggest thing, is waste management. You need to make sure that your dustbin with everything that you've had as waste in that dustbin well away from any animals that can get to it. It's always jackals that are normally the first to come in, and they just generally make a mess and they spread everything all over the place, and you need to clean it up. But other than the problem of making a mess, it does attract potentially dangerous animals such as hyenas. So if you've got your dustbins, if you can put it in the back of your bakkie or inside your car, I normally do that, put it on the inside of the Land Rover or the Toyota or whatever 4x4 you have, and make sure that it's closed up. And obviously then your fresh meat, etc., closed up in your fridge within the vehicle itself as well. Because that's the first thing that's going to attract animals to your campsite, is the smell of food. And it can also be fruit and veg that elephants can smell. That can very often bring them into camp. I've had elephants come into camp and take all my fruit and veg because in the middle of the day I was busy with lunch and turned around and the elephant was at the side of the vehicle busy helping himself to my fruit and veg, and there was nothing I can do, and he flattened everything. But that was just a slip because I didn't realize there was one nearby, but I was busy with it. But it was my own fault. So that's one thing, attracting the animals in for food, and if you can mitigate that in every way whatsoever, then you're in a better position. Secondly, just to have things that you can defend yourself with, as I've mentioned. A torch for at night, a very strong one, a nice handheld one, but one that is the strongest you can get and afford, is highly advisable. And keep it charged, so that at any given moment, if you hear something or whatever, you can shine in its eyes and you can keep it at bay. Then the pepper spray and a horn. And all of these will do absolutely no damage to the animal, but it will deter them and you will be able to get rid of them. Even an elephant, you spray pepper spray at an elephant, he will run for the hills. Lions as well. Buffalo, maybe not, but I tell you, the horn will. That very loud noise, they will get a very big surprise, and it will at least deter them as well. Leopards, same thing, torch and pepper spray. But always remember to get the direct stream, and obviously this is only in defense. It's not to go and use it on any animals indiscriminately. It is only as a defense mechanism. Animals coming into your camp, you can turn them and make them go away. And after half an hour, 45 minutes, there will be absolutely no effects on that animal, but it will have had the fright of its life. So Canine Girl was saying it's not just animals that act differently when in pain or needing to survive. Humans are no different and maybe do worse. Yeah, so that's what we just got to understand. And, looking at that story and looking at the picture of the leopard, you can understand why it was desperate and starving. And humans will do the same. You don't know what you will eat until you are properly starving and you haven't eaten for 10 days. So, people often say that they would never eat that or they would never do that. It's a survival tactic of humans that you will be surprised what you will do, what you will eat, and what you will drink. It's it's only once you have been in that position that you'll understand a little bit better. But from those campers' perspective, once again, I don't think that they did anything wrong. I think it's always a potential that you can have those animals coming in those wilderness areas. I think it's wonderful that we are able to and still go into these wilderness areas. If you look at the Kalahari Transfrontier Reserve, it is just an amazing area in South Africa. It's in the Northern Cape. The nearest town is Uppington, and it's where the red dunes and the scrub fade into infinity, and herds of gemsbok, springbok, eland, and blue wildebeest follow the seasons, where imposing camel thorn trees provide shade for huge black mane lions and vantage points for leopard and many raptors. This is the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, and it's sandwiched in right up in that really weird spot of South Africa. There's like a little finger that goes up in between Namibia and Botswana. And obviously the park extends over the border as well. And it is just an amazing part of the country. And anybody that's able to go there, I think you should go there as much as possible. It's just absolutely stunning. But just remember some of the tricks and tips that I've given you, just to keep yourself safe. Because we must also remember that if there's any animals that attack humans, and it's serious, very often those animals will be destroyed. So I think it's a wonderful conservation area, and people just need to just be aware of where they are and trying to take all the potential safeguards that can help both them and the animals while they're enjoying that wonderful wilderness. And we must also remember that with these parks, if there's not tourists that go there and pay good money to camp and be tourists in these parks, they will cease to exist, because if it doesn't pay, it doesn't stay. So we must sometimes just be not so emotional and just try to look at the solutions rather than blaming anybody or the authorities. I think in this situation it's a little bit unavoidable, but I'm pretty sure that the chap, he will have all his safeguards with him ready from now on, and he won't make another mistake. So Eileen Driscoll saying elephants playing. Yeah, it's the ways of the bulls, especially the young'uns. They like having a bit of a wrestling match. It's always good. And building up good muscle memory for when they are adults and they need to actually do it for real. So then Shiv was asking, there is a video running on the Sky News video feed today of an elephant tipping a safari vehicle. I'm guessing it was bad positioning of the driver rather than the elephant's fault. So Shiv, always in all of these circumstances, I've trained many trails rangers, and there's been many incidents, and it's difficult to tell unless you were there in person, because you've got to look at all the angles. It's the same as having a car accident. It's sometimes difficult to explain how you got into that position and who was at fault or whatever it might have been. So unless you were there, I think we need to reserve our judgment But what I can say is that bull elephants in must, as we have realized and we've witnessed, are very unpredictable. They can be very aggressive for no apparent reason, except because of that 60 times testosterone running through their blood. So you may have seen that exact same bull yesterday, and he was so relaxed that, you would never think it possible that he could be aggressive. And you just catch him on a different day, different mood, and different levels of testosterone, and he's just a completely different beast altogether. Was it fault from the driver or the guide? Potentially. Maybe there was, he approached when he should have realized that the elephant was in must. But I'm not going to hand down that judgment. I've come around bush many, many times and been confronted with elephant bulls in must, and had to take evasive action very fast within, a second, where I'm going forward and then just hit reverse and get out of there straight away, and the elephant's already charging when I see him. So sometimes there's not the fault that we can lay. And we've just got to remember that when we are moving in these wilderness areas, once again, we need to have our wits about us, have respect for the animals, always try to give them right of way, especially with big animals like elephants. And for the main part, you generally then don't have any problems. But there are those times when you may just get that wrong individual at the wrong place, the wrong time, and then you just need to try and take evasive action. So, as I say, it does happen. And with our population as humans expanding all the time, we are in these wilderness areas more often. I think these stories used to also be there a lot in the past, but we didn't have social media. Everybody didn't have a camera. We used to have to go and develop them. So it would take 2 weeks for us to actually be able to see these photographs. And so the stories weren't passed on as much as they are now. And with social media, they pretty much get shared the same day all over the world. So we're hearing about these a lot more as well, as they occur more, because we're in these wilderness areas more and more of us. So I think just the respect and the small tips and tricks that you can apply, and it should keep you in a good space. Anyway, now that these bulls seem to be having a bit of a vergadering or a gathering, I think it's time to change of place, and let's head to Djuma. Where it seems it's an elephantastic day. A lovely breeding herd come in for a drink. Tiny little baby with some older siblings. Wonderful. We've pretty much been watching bulls for the last little while, so always nice to see a little family group. So, as I've said previously, we often see that the breeding herds don't spend as much time around the waterholes as the bulls do. They've got more important business of looking after the young'uns and making sure that everybody's well fed, and they don't really stay in one spot for too long. Sometimes they'll have a bit of a splash and a swim, but generally don't hang around as much as those bulls do, who have lots more time for play. see that little baby putting its mouth right into the water, and that's because it hasn't got the full function or the knowledge of how to, and the muscle memory of how to use its trunk. So when they do want to drink water, that's the way that they do it. And nice to see little tusks emerging on that older sibling that's just moving off now. While the little one, I would say, is definitely less than a year, maybe around there somewhere, but definitely younger than 2 years, that's for sure. So as I thought, here they all slowly start moving off, not spending too much time next to the waterhole. And I must tell you a little story about when I was training the Trails Rangers up in Makuleki, the northern parts of the Kruger, in the Pafuri section of the park. And we went to do a sleep out with the backup trails guides. So they want to get hours. So if we go and do a sleep out, they obviously get a lot more hours that they can log. So we often do this, to increase the hours so that they can log it. And so on this particular time, we walked to one of the spots on a kopje, and everything went well. We passed a herd of elephants on the way. There was also a big breeding herd of buffalo. And then we went up to the kopje. It was about 6 or 7 kilometers that we walked. And we made camp. So watching the sun go down and starting to hear lions roaring, etc., we were just stoked to be out in the bush and having all these sounds and all these big animals near to us and so on. But we were on a little safe kopje, so it was fine. Just after sunset, and we got the fires going and we were starting to cook dinner, and one of the girls said that she was feeling extremely sick. She had a tummy bug, and it was getting out of hand. So I had to radio back to camp to say that we needed a casevac and somebody to come pick the girl up. But we were about 1.5 kilometers away from the road where the pickup would be. And now it was pitch dark. There was no moon. There was nothing. And I knew the direction that we had to go in, but I've never walked in the bush at night. Except between camps, or if you're in a camp between tents or between the graze hall and the tents or whatever, but all within the confines of the camp. Never done a trail at night. Now, previously we had obviously done rifle training where we teach the students how to shoot with a rifle, etc. And this is obviously a very big part of the Trails Ranger training. And we had one of the guys, he was German, and when he came up and we taught him, I showed him the stance that he must stand with and the way that he must hold the rifle, he said, no, don't worry. And he stood square. Instead of sort of, a little bit, you normally stand side on when you shoot a rifle. He stood square on and he held the rifle in a very strange way. But when he shot, I could see something very different about him. He was extremely comfortable with the rifle and he hit the bullseye every single time and he was super fast. And then I asked him about his training and he was actually from the German Special Forces. So I thought, okay, you carry on then. And he absolutely nailed the training. We went straight into assessment and he got it first up. So anyway, he was with us. So when this now happened, I obviously thought to myself, how are we going to get to the road in the dark? Luckily, I never leave camp without a very strong torch, as well as my pepper spray, as I've mentioned previously. And so I put on the torch on my belt, and on the other side I had the pepper spray. Now I'm going to continue the story on here, but while these animals move off, I think let's head to Old Donyo. With a nice big Maasai giraffe. So, continuing the story, had my pepper spray and my very strong torch on either side of me, one on the belt and one in the pocket, and I had my German Special Forces. I put him on the rifle. I also had a rifle, and then the girl behind us. So, I was walking in front with the torch and the German Special Forces right on my shoulder, and we went walking through the bush. Now, obviously, as I said to you, we heard and passed elephants, buffalo, and we had lions calling not far from us just when we were going to sleep, setting camp. So now we're heading through the bush, and I tell you, you can become very quickly disorientated at night, in the bush. We thought we were going in a straight line. We were walking for about 45 minutes, and at a moment I heard some voices, and I thought, there's the vehicle, we must be getting close to the road. When we got closer, I saw the fire burning, and we had walked in a massive circle, and we were back at camp. I was enraged because now I'm the instructor, and I've just walked us back to camp. Anyway, we headed back out, we checked the stars, and we navigated like this. I actually got the girl to sort of change her mind from her stomach just to keep an eye on the stars so that we could keep an eye in front of us with the torch and with the rifle German SWAT on my shoulder. We then went trundling through the bush. We got her eventually to the road, we got the Cassavac, and then the German Special Forces dude and myself walked back to camp once more, safe and sound, and I felt very confident with him on my shoulder. So anyway, I think that's just another way of saying that when you go out in the bush, you just need to prepare yourself for certain scenarios. Obviously, you're not going to be going out with firearms, but if you do intend on going bushwalks, rather go out with trained guides if there are potentially dangerous animals. But if you're on self-drive and you go into these camps, like in the Kalahari, just remember two small things: that very bright torch and a can of pepper spray. If you want to add to it, get that horn, and then just also think about your waist and what you're doing, because you wouldn't walk across a busy road without taking heed of what's going on around you, just as you need to think when you're in the bush of all these potential incidents that can occur and what you would do if it happens, and so that you're ready for any such eventuality. So Canine Girl was asking, do elephant bulls know their young and ever protect their own offspring? Canine Girl, it is believed that they do understand and know which calves are theirs. And I looked this up yesterday or the day before, and I did seem to find quite a bit of evidence showing that elephant bulls do recognize their own offspring. But if we have to talk about protecting them, that's pretty much left to the breeding herd and the females. The bulls are sort of mainly interested in mating with the females and not too much in parental care. That's mostly left to the females. So not really that much evidence, I would say, of bulls actually protecting their own offspring, because they're not really interested in being dads. And then Sandy Franklin was saying, in the past few days there have been plenty of the elephants fighting. Is there a particular reason? Sandy Franklin, I would say it's mainly just because they're bulls, and that's what elephant bulls do with each other. It's kind of like human males. When they get to a particular age, they like to get a little bit rough with each other, have a bit of wrestling. From about the age of 10, sometimes younger, sometimes older. It's just generally in the nature of males to to go about a little bit of argy-bargy. That's why in South Africa we really like playing rugby. And that's a way for us to get out, that spent aggression in a wonderful sport. But, it's also like kids, once they finish school and they start going to the bars, there's lots of fights. It's just something about males that testosterone drives them to want to have a communal aggressiveness. And so you see it mostly with those young bulls. It can come through a little bit with the adult bulls, but not so much. You notice them here at Ordonio, it's a lot more reserved. And with the bigger bulls, when they do go for that kind of aggressiveness, they normally mean business. And once again, you could, liken that to humans as well. Once males get a bit older, if there is a fight, it normally is a real fight, as opposed to the sort of later teenagers into the early 20s. That's when they, enjoy tackling each other, wrestling, pile on, whatever it might be. I went to boarding school and it just never ended. You always had somebody hitting you over the head or trying to chase you or whatever it is. So I think it's just in their nature. And nothing about the season or anything will dictate that. Elephants don't have any set breeding season or any set period of coming into must. It's just, I would say, down to the character of male elephants. And that's it. So, and those red-billed oxpeckers just taking the opportunity when the giraffe's near to the water and coming down for a quick drink before going back to feed on the parasites hanging on the giraffe itself. They do sometimes also have a bit of a dust bath on the right hand side of this waterhole. It's where the water overflows, and so sometimes there's mud there too. And you can have a bit of a bath there, but when it dries up, then it seems like it's a good dust bathing spot as well. What a wonderful view that is. If only the clouds would clear a little bit just for us to see the snow-capped peak of Kilimanjaro. And with this giraffe, he was almost looking at it, it seemed like, a moment ago. So old Punkster saying it's always especially beautiful there with that tree and the bush and the clouds, for some reason so beautiful. I think absolutely old Punkster, and a lot to do with the contrasts, I think. The beautiful colors of green and that very lush bush. And then you have the very white sky here on many occasions with lots of clouds, very tropical here. But then you have a bursting of blue colors mixed in it. And then obviously that black in the background with Mount Kilimanjaro. It does make for a beautiful picture. So Orchid Fairy was asking what are the beautiful canopy type trees in the background. Those are what I was chatting about earlier, Orchid Fairy. Those are the umbrella thorns, also known as, or the Latin name being Acacia tortillas, Acacia now being the Vachellia tortillas. So the umbrella thorn, and obviously the name because of the shape of those canopies, really very much like an umbrella. This giraffe seemingly wants to come in for a drink, but they're very often even more nervous when they're alone. When there's more giraffes, they seem to relax a little bit and come in quicker to drink. But as we saw with that elephant that stabbed that giraffe, there's every reason for them to be nervous. They are very meek and mild in character, are the giraffe. So they generally do take a long time to make sure that there's no danger before coming in for a drink. So we've got a superb starling here in the foreground, I believe. I'm not quite sure what that other bird is, the brown one on the other side. No, so that's not a superb starling. That looks like a blue-eared starling. See that darker coloration just behind the eye? I think that is a greater blue-eared starling. So the different starlings that you do get in Kenya are the greater blue-eared starling, the superb starling, the red-winged starling, Ruppel's glossy starling. So there are quite a number of them. So Kyle was asking, do giraffe know or acknowledge when one of them has died? So Kyle, I know that when the females, when a baby would die, obviously they mourn the young, they will stay near to it. So it's obviously in a state of, trying to understand why it's not moving, etc. And so from mothers, it's obvious that they do stick with a baby if it dies. But finding evidence of giraffe actually mourning their dead, I found a lovely little blog from Taylor Brown on the Londolozi blog, speaking of fascinating giraffe behavior and reaction to a fallen companion. One morning, while driving along a road in the northern parts of the reserve, this would be on Londolozi, we encountered something that was particularly unusual. At first glance, it seemed like a normal giraffe sighting with a fair few individuals in one area, but as we approached, it turned out to be something both myself and tracker Richard had never seen before. Let's rewind the clock by about a week in order to unpack what we were seeing. A large male giraffe was found dead in this exact spot and was being fed on by the Nkuhuma pride of lions. Unsure of whether the pride had killed the giraffe or if it had died naturally or as a result of a battle with another male. If the lions had brought it down, that would have been a tremendous battle to witness, but this isn't the point of this blog. Eventually, there wasn't much meat left, so the lions moved off, allowing other scavengers to completely finish off whatever remains there were, leaving nothing but a bit of skin and bones within hours. Now back to our sighting that morning. There was a group of about 10 or so giraffe around the area where the giraffe had died, all with their heads down, moving around within meters of the remains of the carcass. Giraffe will often chew on or grind bones between their teeth in an attempt to supplement mineral deficiencies when their diets, such as calcium and phosphorus. Normally, these are much older, smaller, and dried out bones and unlikely to come from another giraffe. What we were seeing was different. These giraffe were not looking for bones to chew. These giraffe looked a little uneasy and slightly distressed. Without opening a serious can of worms, as we could go down a long rabbit hole here on this topic, there's more and more research showing that a number of animals, including but not limited to whales, killer whales, chimpanzees, and elephants, show signs of grieving. With new discoveries, apparently, so do giraffe. Everything within mammals' lives is driven by hormones, and so are emotions. Without trying to anthropomorphize these wild animals too far, it could make sense that they would also feel some form of emotion around the loss of another one of their kind. It was incredibly interesting behavior from the giraffe. Because of our cognitive abilities, we couldn't help but assume that they were paying tribute to the fallen giraffe. We don't know this for sure, though. I've heard of elephants acknowledging bones of past elephants, but I personally have never seen this before in giraffe. It was quite something. We sat watching the giraffe for nearly half an hour as they all seemed so concerned about the bones below. Every one of them at some point lowered their head to the ground to sniff around, and most did this multiple times. It almost seemed as if they were trying to figure out what had happened to the dead giraffe. A few of the other rangers have seen similar behaviors shown by a mother giraffe when losing her young calf. And this is what I've seen too. So in these instances, the mother was found standing next to a calf that had died naturally. She would often nudge it with her foot or bend over and attempt to wake it up with her head, occasionally licking the little one. Almost appearing distressed, the rangers would hear her give off a loud, deep exhalation, which sounded similar to the giraffe's alarm call. A clan of hyenas then began to feed on the dead giraffe, and as soon as the mother noticed, she came charging back in and chased the hyenas away. Over the course of the next 3 days, the mother was seen in the same area walking around aimlessly. Normally, giraffe are always seen feeding or ruminating. This mother was doing neither, and possibly could have been interpreted as a giraffe's form of grieving or processing the death of her calf. Eventually, she moved off, but seeing these giraffes so fixated on the bones of one of their own was something new and quite spectacular for me. It gave me a new appreciation for giraffe and got me thinking that maybe they do, in their own way, somehow acknowledge their dead. So Orchid Fairy, sorry, I nearly said Orchid Factory. Sorry about that, Orchid Fairy. Asking Ralph, is there any animals outside of the African bush you would like to see? Well, one that immediately comes to mind is a tarpon from Costa Rica. This is one place that I really want to go to. And fish. It would absolutely be for catch and release. But I would just love to see a tarpon on the end of my line jumping and tail walking out of the water. This is one of the most exciting forms of fishing I've ever seen, and something that I would like to see as well. And get it on the boat, have a look at it, and put it back. Yeah, so that's definitely top of the list. And then I would have to say a lot of marine species like the dugong or the manatee. That's one that I would really love to see. And then the likes of emperor penguins. Mostly centered around marine life. Because I spend so much time in the bush, I like to change, for my own personal interest, just to see different parts of the world and different animals that we don't get here in Africa. All right, so it seems like this giraffe not doing too much. So I think we'll leave him for now. Hopefully he'll get down for a drink. But let's change of place and head back to Juma. Couple of kudu, one nice big bull with a female. And I must say, I'd also like to see all the primates of Madagascar and the chameleons and all those crazy creatures that are very different to ours here. So I think that kudu bull is pursuing that female. And he is a good-looking bull, I must add. Looks like he's got lots of mud on his horns. So Hazel asking, how do kudu identify a female to mate with? Hazel, and this, with a lot of the mammals, this comes back to the vomeronasal organ, the Jacobson's organ, as it's commonly known as, in the back of the mouth of mammals and the males. And they would be able to tell that a female is coming into estrus by the levels of estrogen in the urine. So he'll literally lick the urine when she urinates, and then he'll perform the phlegm grimace, which is then activating that vomeronasal organ, deciphering the urine and sending the message to the brain. And then he would obviously realize that the female is coming into estrus, and that would literally, make him want to mate with her and pursue her. So sometimes she's just coming into estrus, or she's just come out of estrus, and the males can still smell that. So the females may not be receptive, but still showing high signs of estrogen levels. So he could still be, wanting to mate with her, even though she's not receptive. So sometimes you see that, and that's maybe what we're seeing here. Although sometimes they do play a little bit hard to get, and it takes a bit of time. She leads him on a bit of a trail, and eventually she will allow him to mate with her. Just see off on the left there. There's a hammerkop, I think, in the tree there, in that fork of the tamboti tree, just behind it. There's the hammerkop bird. That's what we call it in South Africa. There is no English name for it. It is a hammerkop or hammerhead, direct translation, but we maintain the Afrikaans name, which is a hammerkop. Make massive nests, one of the largest nest builders that we have in Africa. And single nest, so it's just one couple that builds it. Obviously, the sociable weavers build much bigger nests, but that is countless pairs that work together for the community. But these guys, they build a massive mud nest, normally mixed in with reeds and all sorts. And there's normally a false entrance, which is to deter predators. Now, the hammerkop is actually quite a morbid individual in terms of African folklore, because it is believed by a lot of African people that if a hammerkop flies over your home, the abode has to be burnt down, or bad luck will follow. So it's also believed by some that if a hammerkop calls in the evening, someone will pass away during the night. And so not much love for the hammerkop in the African culture, and it's all centered around these beliefs. But their call is also quite an eerie monkey-like sound, and if you've ever heard it, you don't forget it. So, and amongst other certain African tribes, the hammerkop is also believed to be the lightning bird. Among others, the lightning bird is believed to manifest itself only through lightning, except to women, to whom it reveals itself as a bird. And in these instances, the bird is of an imaginary nature and may take several forms. So quite a magical, if not a dark magic, bird is the hammerkop. So many stories about the hammerkop, but among the stories told are many painting the hammerkop as an omen of death or evil. And others describe the hammerkop as symbolic of human vanity and futility. So, also on the subject of the hammerkorp's nest, this marvel of avian architecture is the feature for which these birds are most well known. The hammerkorp nests are enormous basket-shaped structures which are usually built atop forks in trees near bodies of water. We often see them down in that Mulwati riverline, down in that Tambuti regions, and normally somewhere near to water. And male and female hammerkorps tag team the nest building and are known to use all manner of building materials, from sticks as large as 5 feet long to a range of human debris. From bicycle tires to random ornamental bits of discarded human materials, hammerkorps may have earned their reputation for witchcraft and magic thanks to their tendency to collect man-made objects. And on the brighter side of things, hammerkorps may also be associated with carpentry or construction, because their abilities as builders are truly remarkable. And furthermore, the lifestyle of the hammerkorp is a fantastic symbol of the strength and protection of the family. A strong foundation of trust and responsibility is the backbone of a strong family, and hammerkorp parents dedicate themselves to building a home that is safe and comfortable for their offspring. And for this reason, hammerkorps also represent protection, parenthood, the home, and family ties. All right, now that it seems a little bit devoid of life, well, there's lots of life, but not too many animals about that we can see. So I think let's change of place and let's go back to Tau. So Jade was asking, do any female animals ever get too old to mate? Well, the short answer to that, Jade, is yes, because they die when they get too old. So definitely, but a lot of females will stop being able to breed shortly before dying, but usually that's because of illness or old age interfered actually with their fertility. So once they start, or their condition starts dropping, whether they can't eat anymore properly, their teeth are worn down, maybe they've got some ailments, it does start to affect their fertility, and they would normally stop breeding and mating a period before dying of natural causes, which would have led to that point. So yes, they definitely will slow down with mating and stop before, if there was a natural cause of death. But obviously they wouldn't stop mating and breeding if they're just being taken out by a carnivore, for instance, because that's an occurrence that they wouldn't be able to plan for. So they would continue breeding and mating as their fertility allows, and they do produce enough estrogen and come into estrus. Then obviously the males will be interested because of that, and they will mate with them. But in terms of their fertility, it will obviously get less with age. But it does also seem like the older females in elephants, for instance, do actually mate more so the older they get. But then it does get to a point where they're no longer fertile as a result of the worsening condition because of the age. So Canine Girl saying a huge thank you, Ralph, for all the great information and learning. Always truly appreciated. And always truly appreciated your comments and your questions, Canine Girl. Thanks for joining us once again. It's been lovely. And Jenna from the UK saying grateful for another informative and interesting live at the Waterhole. And lovely to have you on board once again, Jenna. Enjoy the rest of your day on the Mud Island. So, slowly heading towards the end of the show. I hope you've enjoyed all the chats about everything wild and safari. It's been an absolute pleasure. We had some wonderful sightings today, and as per usual, it's been completely different to yesterday, as always. So, thanks to you, the viewers, for joining us, and obviously don't forget that there is lots more coming your way. Later on, there will be the Sunset Safari, naturalists getting out and about and seeing what they can find. Holding thumbs and toes that you're going to get some predators and lots of excitement. So don't go anywhere. Lots more coming your way. Thanks to the whole WildEarth crew. You guys rock. And of course to the wildlife for doing what they do and being the stars of the show. So these wildebeest just milling about just as we're about to end the show. I wonder if they're having a drink or if they're getting into some of that soil there. Well, that's it from me for now, folks. Bush greetings. Salagahle. Cheers.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Amy, and behind the camera with me, of course, is Panda. And this is the show where we discuss the best of the last 24